Well, guys, it took us a few minutes, but we are here going. So thank you for your patience. Of course, it's Wednesday night. It is no longer 7 o'clock. It's a few minutes after, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have us a show tonight. And I'm so glad to have my guest, Brandy Bortak, with us. Good evening, Brandy, and thank you for your continued patience in trying to get this set up and going.
Yes, no, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And for those of you who don't know or weren't in school at the same time as Brandy, she of course was a longtime cheerleader at Northview, later on at Alabama, and remains active in the sport of cheering and all other sports. And we're gonna get into all that good stuff. But before we do all that, catch us up, tell us about your beautiful family. Where are you? What's your line of work these days, and just go for it.
Sure. So we are in Gwinnett County, a suburb outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And I married Jamie Bortak, who met him at Alabama my freshman year there. And we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. So we were really excited about that. And we have 3 beautiful children. Blake, will be a sophomore this year at Samford University in Birmingham. And our middle daughter, Brenna Claire, she'll be a senior this year at Archer High School. And then we have our youngest daughter, Bailey, and she will be in the 7th grade at Hebron Christian Academy. And Excellent. Yeah, then got my undergraduate at Alabama in education, and then went to the University of Georgia and received my master's in school counseling. So I've been working with Gwinnett County Public Schools for 18 years, a couple years as a teacher, but most of my years are in elementary school counseling. And just recently took a job in Walton County. It's a little bit smaller system, smaller school. So I will also be an elementary school counselor there too.
Well, very, very good. And of your 3 children, I know you love them equally, but you've lately got to watch your oldest play in the NCAA playoffs, I guess maybe at Starkville against Mississippi State and some of those schools.
Yes, that was the most exciting. That's just been a dream come true of his and of ours. And to see him in that environment, Samford, not only was he there, but he got to pitch game 1 as a true freshman. So we were just overjoyed, and the Starkville fans were just great. We were making friends all around us. They were actually, some of them were rooting for Blake. So that was a lot of fun. But just baseball in general is a huge part of our family. We love sports, as you'll find. But my husband, he actually played baseball at Alabama. He was a pitcher. So my son, gets that naturally from him.
Brandy, you still there?
I am.
Okay, sorry, you went out for a few seconds, but you're right. It's that's so great, and playing over in Starkville, that's a unique experience. That's an awesome ballpark. Well, very good, and we wish him continued success, and hopefully back in the playoffs again next year.
Yes, thank you.
Well, let's focus on you for a little bit. Let's talk about your journey around the United States, and then finally finding your way to Dothan. So share a little bit of the family history.
Sure. So I was born in Arkansas, and my dad worked with Ford Motor Credit Company, and my mom is an educator. So she taught school at a junior high in Arkansas. That's kind of how my love of cheerleading happened. She was the cheer coach there at a very young age. And I was the mascot for that junior high from about the age 2 until I moved. And I was with the girls cheering every game, every junior high football game, went to camps with them. And my mom was also a college cheerleader. She cheered at University of Central Arkansas. And so after Arkansas, my dad was transferred to Michigan. Obviously, being with Ford Motor Credit Company, we had to go to Michigan for a couple of years. I went there from the 5th grade to the 7th grade. And of course, tried out for cheerleading, made it, but unfortunately had to leave. And he was transferred to Dothan, Alabama. So that's where my journey begins, in Dothan. I was an 8th grader at Honeysuckle Middle School.
I want to know your immediate response when you learned you were moving 1,500 miles south of Arkansas, nonetheless, into a little town in southeast Alabama.
Yeah. So, funny story. My mom, of course, my parents were born and raised in Arkansas, and she had this little stick. We'd put it on the map, and she would say, I can go this far away from Arkansas. So Dothan met the criteria. So he took the job and ended up in Dothan, Alabama. And it just was such a fun place for us. Couldn't have asked to grow up in a more wonderful city, throughout my high school years.
But you were going into eighth grade or going into ninth when you moved to Dothan?
I was going into the 8th grade.
Okay, so you're in the middle of middle school. That's
Yeah.
not quite as traumatic maybe as it would be leaving middle school, going to high school. So talk to us a little bit about eighth grade. I know you couldn't cheer that year, but what did you do? How did you replace that competitiveness, that need to get out and do, something sports related?
Yeah, so I was also a dancer. So I danced at the Dothan School of Dance, and it was funny. I was in Michigan at a convention, and I met Tracy, the owner. Tracy Solomon, I believe, was the owner at that time. And she had some dancers down there, and I just went up and I said, I just wanted you to know, I've never seen dancers like your dancers. They're amazing. Where are you from? She said, Dothan, Alabama. And I said, I'm moving there. Now, this is all the way in Michigan. So small world, but I ended up dancing there for a couple of years as well. Didn't really have the cheer gyms like we do now. I probably would have done that, but it was right down the street from Honeysuckle. I can remember walking from school to go to dance lessons right there at Dothan School of Dance.
Very good. Very good. All right. Let's talk about trying out for cheerleader for ninth grade at Northview. What was that experience about?
It was great. Not many people knew that I could cheer or had experience. And so, the week of tryouts, they were like, oh my goodness, Brandy, you can cheer. And I was like, yeah. So, I was excited. I was just hoping I would make it, that was one way, just to be more involved in your school and in your town. And then, lo and behold, as I made the freshman team. So, and had a lot of good friends on that team.
Now, not every cheerleader is a sports fan or a football fan. Some cheerleaders just love getting out there and just being a cheerleader and representing their school. Did you also share the love of the sport and have knowledge about how football, the game, actually goes on?
I did. And it's funny you asked that question. On varsity, back then we used to have mics where everybody would take turns to be on the mic. Mm-hmm. And I did not like to be on the mic to call cheers because I like to be on the back row where I could see the game going on. So I loved, cheering, but I also loved being able to watch on the field to see my friends out there playing. And I loved watching them play. Friday nights were just so much fun, especially in Dothan, Alabama, and for Northview High School. There really was nothing like it back then that I experienced.
Well, I know that later on after high school, you certainly got on a bigger stage, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Guys, I'm talking with Brandy Bortak, of course, cheerleader at Northview back in the day, and got some folks that want to say hello to you. Of course, Jason Mullins says to tell you hello.
Oh, hi, Jason.
And Shirley C., you cannot have been married for 25 years, according to Miss C. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
If there's any one running theme to those who are watching, we know Shirley C. is there each week, and I love that. And she is one of the common threads. It doesn't matter what year you were at Northview, you're going to know Shirley C., and she certainly is going to know you. So thank you, Shirley, for being there every single week.
She is
such a great supporter.
Yes, just love Miss C.
Well, let's talk about ninth grade. Let's talk about cheering for I don't know what y'all called them. When I was in ninth grade, we were the baby Cougars, not the ninth grade team. For some reason, nobody liked that name, but whatever it was the ninth grade team. And the ninth grade cheerleaders back in our day were the ninth graders were eligible to be the cheerleaders for just the ninth grade team. Was it still the same way your year?
We were actually JV, I believe. I think, or maybe it was just freshmen. Yeah, it was just freshmen. Mm-hmm. Yes. And we went to camp that year too and did really well. And I can't remember. I remember cheering with some older girls, but we did really well. We won camp that year. We won every year. It was we were just a great little team. But I do remember most importantly, just traveling on the bus, going to different games, Ozark Enterprise, of course, cheering at Repuse. So that was a lot of fun.
How important was it to you that to make the ninth grade cheer squad, in that I just assume that if you belong to a group, whether it's a football team or the Spanish club or whatever it is, how important was it to you for that ninth grade squad for friendships and socialization and those kind of things coming into the new school?
Yeah, I mean, it was really important, and it was, kind of a keystone for me to get to know other people. I mean, I was brand new to Dothan. My parents were brand new to Dothan, small town, small big town, I guess you would say. So I really loved my friends on the team, and met some great girls, and was able to just have a lot of fun just being a high schooler. And most importantly, I think too, what I love most about cheering is just your other friends that are on the football field, and being able to celebrate their successes, and watching them do something that they love as well.
Well, let's talk about fashion, and more specifically, let's talk about hairstyles. Back in the 80s, the higher the hair that was teased, that seemed to be the cheerleaders as well. Now, when you came through in the 90s, what was the hairstyle like for cheerleaders, particularly on game day?
Yeah, our hair was still pretty big. I remember us always wearing the side ponytail too sometimes. So we'd have a side ponytail curled, and much hairspray could get in it. But yeah, the hair was definitely huge back then.
Now, and I'm skipping around just a little bit, but who was Goldie during your time period?
It was Aaron that was on just the other day.
I couldn't, what I didn't know is if y'all were the same class, if it was the same years, or how that was.
And I believe was a girl named Dawn. And Aaron was a freshman, I believe, when I was a senior. So, but Dawn, so I was on varsity my junior and senior year.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about just going through ninth grade into 10th grade. In addition to cheering, did you participate in any other activities in the school, like SGA or any clubs or any other sports?
Yeah, so I was the vice president in the 10th grade. And I was also Key Club Sweetheart, 9th through 12th grade, with Miss Catherine Slingla. And just an amazing girl. And then also they started a softball team, the first Northview softball team under Miss Peppy Cooper. And she decided to take us on. And so my sophomore year was the first year that we had a softball team at Northview High School.
So what you're saying is there wasn't a lot of sitting around your house after school each day. You had stuff going on all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Well, and let's stick with the foot. We'll go back to the football theme, if you will. And what was it about cheering for Northview that was fun? I mean, I know that's such a broad question, but everybody gets into cheering or football or sports or whatever their activities for different reasons. I'm not going to assume that it was just only for this reason or that. So share with us, what was it that made it so fun for you?
Well, first of all, they were amazing. They were so good. It was easy to cheer for and lots of fun. The school spirit was just, I've never seen anything like it. Even as my own children have grown, I try to compare it to what we had in high school, and the pep rallies, the staff, even the administration, everybody at school, they were involved on Fridays for pep rallies and game days. And the community at night, at Repuse Stadium was just unbelievable. Just a packed house. I remember even like the Dothan Northview game would sometimes have over 15,000 people. And so it was just a lot of fun. Of course, being with my friends, leading a crowd, cheering, just the lights, everything. My daughters cheer competitively. They also cheer for their high school, but I tell them, what is it that you want to cheer for? Is it that you want to cheer for a title, or do you, being in front of your hometown? That's almost a greater feeling, being in front of your hometown and cheering for your friends. And that's what I really loved most and what I remember most, and just the feeling. I can remember the teachers on game day, they would always dress up. I mean, they would outdo the students sometimes, and how involved that they would be. Looking back as an adult now, I can see that they really loved us and loved their students and loved what they did.
Well, I want to do a little bit of comparison with your experience, with your children's experience, and you being in the school system. I realize you're not at the high school, at least not now, but what are there some similarities? There has to be, but I'm sure there's lots of differences. And have you talked about that with your children as they're going through it?
Yeah, I think here in Gwinnett, we're such a large system that they only have like 2 or 3 pep rallies a year. It's not like, game day every day like we used to have. So that's different. One of the things that I love were banners and the run throughs, and we would spend hours. I mean, the year before we would start making these banners, we would get the schedule. And I don't know if you remember, but on the end zones at Rip Hughes, we would have one huge long banner going across, and then on the other side, another banner, and then we'd have our run through banner. And we worked on those banners. Of course, we had 7th period was our PE and was cheerleading. And we worked on those banners. So now they kind of have the rip apart banners. I don't think they're as fun, but there's still a lot of school spirit, that they have. I think one of the main differences here, the kids get a theme every night and they dress up every night for a theme. We didn't really have that growing up, but I guess that maybe replaces some of our pep rallies on the Friday nights. The kids here dress up in different themes. They might have an American night or a camo night or a neon night or something like that. So.
Well, that's cool. Now, who was the cheer sponsor during your days?
Miss Andrews and Miss Cooper. Actually, my senior year, I think Miss Cooper helped sponsor us too.
And when you guys were doing all of your practicing in the summers and getting ready for camp and getting ready for the season, was there a particular person's house that you all went to, or did you go to a gym, or where would you guys go to get ready for the season?
We would just go to Northview High School, go up to the gym or on the tennis courts, or in the grass somewhere, and just find a place for us to practice. We always went either to Auburn University, and then my senior year we went to Georgia to the camps hosted by NCA.
Well, I know those were exhausting but yet thrilling weeks for you guys.
We always did. It was so fun.
Now, who were some of your friends on the cheer squad back in the day?
Oh my goodness, Christy Beal, Melanie Sullivan, Claudia Howell, Erica Redden, Marlene Coleman, Allison Palk, Carmen. Yeah, it feels so good to say names, but yeah, girls.
I'm sure you could list them all if you think about it. But I guess I want to find out, because this one of the things, you guys are so close to the actual field, and your backs are to the game 90% of the time. You're facing the crowd, you're doing your thing. How is it that you guys don't get hurt more often? It just always is amazing to me. Even when they come barreling in there, I guess it's the athleticism, and maybe you see that it's coming at the last second, but I know that happens from time to time.
Yeah, at Alabama, I actually got hit on the foot with a football, and it was pretty painful, but I made it through. You can hear in the background too, what's coming at you, or if there's ever an exciting play, we've turned around and we're watching and we're cheering and, getting the crowd, screaming loud. So hopefully the guys can hear that. I'm sure sometimes they can't, but, we loved it when they would always come down on our end, because we had 10 feet away from the play. I mean, you could hear the shoulder pads popping and the yelling and the sweat flying, and, you could just see it all. So lots of fun.
You guys had some of the best seats in the house, so to speak, but you had to turn around every once in a while to do the responsibilities. Well, what was any memorable games, either away or being at Rip Hughes? You described a little bit about what it was like at the games, but do you have a particular games that stick out? I don't know if it's the last game you cheered or maybe away at a special venue. Share with us a little bit about some of those memories.
I do. In my junior year, when we played Biger in the state championship, and that game, I believe, and Jason could probably tell you better, but I think it went in 3, maybe 4 overtimes. Um, and I don't think we were supposed to win that game. They had us pick not to win, but that was an amazing. And Northview brought a big crowd from Dothan. I mean, the visitor stands was packed out. And so I remembered that game well, and we were just so excited. Our boys fought so hard to win that game. Of course, the game after that, I believe, was Murphy. We all still believe that kick was good. And that was a tough time. And we just knew we were going all the way because we had such a talented team there as well.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't know if you saw my conversation with Jinsu Park last week.
I did.
What an awesome guy. And you could not have asked someone to respond any better than the way Jinsu has all these years. And I really enjoyed my conversation with him.
Absolutely. We were behind him 100%. Just a great friend, great guy. And, unfortunately didn't turn out our way, but I'm sure he and all of us have learned a lot, and we've never forgotten that. And, some of the games we beat Dothan, my senior year. So I do remember that game as well.
Well, you'll always remember the year you beat Dothan, particularly your senior year. Brandy, I want to welcome Amanda Howell. Excuse me, is with us, and she sends her regards, and she also says that Jinsu's kick was good.
Yes.
Well, let's transition to your senior year. The season is winding down. Do you have, and you may or may not, but do you have any vivid memories of the last game? Any thoughts about that? Were you sad that it was your last game, or were you happy that you were a senior and you were about to move on to the next phase in life, or maybe a little bit of mixture there?
Yeah, I think for me, I do remember it being the last time. At that point, I had decided I knew I wanted to go to the University of Alabama. And, I was hoping it wouldn't be the last time I ever cheered. But I was the type of student, I just took every day in, and I did get voted Most Cougar Spirit that year in the yearbook. But no, I was sad. Funny story. I saved everything from that year. I have streamers from pep rallies. I have the balloon that was tied on my megaphone. I had this old football, hand shield that I'd found at one of the games, and it was good luck. So I kept it under my megaphone every game. I wrote a letter to myself and had it in my pillow, as a high schooler from the first football game. And it said, "Don't take out until it's over." So, I loved cheering. I loved being a part of my school and the community. That was so important to me. And, so yeah, I was a little bit sad, but I knew I had a goal in mind. And of course I'd be playing softball that spring, but I had a goal in mind, and I had to work really hard for that. At Alabama, when you tried out in the early 90s, you had to do a tumbling pass from basically your entrance was from one end of the gym to the other, or the court. And I knew I had to improve that. So I was a library aide in 7th period. And so when my duties were done, I would go down to the gym, and after school, I would work on this, because that's the only area I had. There weren't really any cheer gyms. And so I would work on that, or I would run. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later, but I would run for my endurance. Back then Alabama had, you had to weigh a certain weight. And so I had to, cut some weight off, and would run with my dad all the time, and my mom. And, they just helped me, pursue that goal of mine.
And I guess that was leading into your spring of your senior year. You're playing softball as well.
Yeah.
It seems like the more activities that a senior loads up, they never have enough time to sleep. They never have enough time for really everything they want to do, but somehow you fit it in. And those days, I know you've probably shared this with your children as they've gone through it or are going through it. Those days just go by so fast, and you realize that, wow, and where did it go?
Yeah.
I suspect that was similar to your experiences as well.
It was, and I remember being a freshman and someone saying those exact words to me. I was walking up along, actually, I guess where the band or the auditorium is now, and I was walking, I will never forget, I was walking in that field and someone said, these 4 years are going to go by really fast, enjoy every minute. And that was so true. And, one of the things that I liked, after the games on Friday, and I know Jason could probably attest to this too, I would always go out and hug my friends. I was so, after the games, just celebrating win or loss, let them know that we were proud of them. And I enjoyed that time too. So like I said, I was the type of student, I just took everything in and enjoyed every single moment, as best that I could.
Well, that's probably how you ended up with Most Cougar Spirit Award your senior year. But I want to welcome one of your then future classmates and football player extraordinaire at Alabama, Kevin Jackson, has joined us. Kevin.
Yes.
So not only did you get to cheer for Kevin in high school, but the two of y'all ended up in Tuscaloosa and you're on the sidelines while Kevin's playing as well. Now I got to ask about what was the policy back then at Alabama about hair? Because those pictures you sent, that's some good hair. That's some high hair we got going there.
It was pretty, put the hot rollers in. It's funny, we have a book called Bryant Denny Saturday, and that was made in the 90s. And even the majorettes, have all the hot rollers in, and, has a picture of the majorettes getting ready. And so, yeah, back then that was the thing to do, was to put the hot rollers in and, get your hair as big as possible, for sure.
That's awesome. Now, when did you try out for Alabama's cheer squad?
So I tried out my freshman year, right off the bat, went through Rush, and I was a FIMU at Alabama, and then, tryouts were that September. So, still running. And like I said, I would run in the morning, my mom would follow me in the car, so I'd get my run in. So she didn't want me running by myself. And then at night, when my dad would get home from work, I would run again. I would go up to Northview. I would practice all my tumbling passes. Alabama had an open tryout. So the entire Coliseum back then was filled with sororities and spectators. I mean, the whole, Coleman Coliseum was, one side was completely filled. So, I knew I wanted it so bad, and I just went after it. And they only picked 6 girls out of about 40. And, that was one of the first times where I thought, it just may not happen, but you're going to give everything you have. And, when they called my number, I just couldn't believe it. I almost collapsed.
I bet. Now, did you get to cheer as a freshman, or was that for the next season as a sophomore?
I got to cheer as a freshman. We cheered at all home games. And also that was when we played in Birmingham too. So Tuscaloosa, Birmingham. And then we also cheered for women's basketball and gymnastics and volleyball.
Well, you were used to cheering in high school for a few thousand, maybe 10,000, maybe a little bit more on certain games. But when you're cheering on the sidelines of an SEC game, it's upwards closer to 100,000. Even back then, it was probably 80, 90,000. Was there much difference fundamentally in what you were doing other than the size of the crowd and the volume of the crowd?
The feeling is the same as far as, getting to lead a crowd and being out there. But the nostalgia and being part of that tradition, and, it was amazing. I can't even put it into words how much fun being a cheerleader at the University of Alabama was. The people that we would meet, the pep rallies that we would do. I can remember traveling to different cities, Mobile, Birmingham, Huntsville. It's just so much fun to meet alumni and talk with them. And, people love Alabama football and they are crazy about it. And so just all of it, being there on game day, hearing Sweet Home Alabama played, over the speakers, just so surreal and so much fun, and just loved every minute of it. It's funny, I could always find my parents in the crowd. So I would kind of have a feeling of where they'd be sitting. So they never missed a game. And, they're from Arkansas. So they put on their Alabama shirts and said Roll Tide. So, for those.
Yeah. A little bit different color red for them, but they got used to it, I suspect. Which season, what fall was your first fall in Tuscaloosa?
The 92, we won the national championship.
I was going to say, then you cheered for the national championship team season.
I did.
Well, what a thrill that must have been. Did you get to cheer in the Sugar Bowl in Louisiana?
They only took varsity that year. I was on JV my first year. So they just took varsity, but we got to attend all the pep rallies and, the big parade when they came home. It was so fun. So just a part of all those festivities and, just being able to cheer for that team. I mean, goodness sakes, they were just something like you've never seen. And I've taken my children to the Bryant-Denny Museum, and I talk about, there's different pictures and plays. And I was like, I was there, I was at that game.
Well, that's personally speaking, that's probably the loudest football game I've ever attended on an indoor setting. My gosh, that was
against
game against Miami. That's right. The most memorable play for me was George Teague's strip of Lamar Thomas on a play that ultimately didn't count. But anyway, that's neither here nor there for now.
That's Bryant-Denny as well.
Well, guys, I'm talking with Brandy Bortak. We're just living some good old days back in the 90s. But what I want to ask you, Brandy, and we've got a little bit of time left, and I appreciate you taking us through some of your memories and your journey. When you became a cheerleader at Alabama, did you reflect back on your time at Northview? Did you use any of that experience, any of that training and so forth, and be able to bring it to cheering for the Tide?
Yeah, as far as the determination and, leadership and what it took, absolutely, you had to be, on your A game, so to speak, a lot of the times, and just being a leader, setting good examples, just living right and, being a leader for the team you represent, your school, your community. I loved both cheering at Northview High School and then being able to, take that on into Alabama. So it was just so much fun. And, I'm excited that my girls have kind of, taken in that footstep. They are competitive cheerleaders. And, I tell them, I say, y'all are better than I ever was. So it's been fun to watch them grow as well in the sport. And, my daughter, is going to be applying to the University of Alabama. And of course she is going to, try out when they have tryouts. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, see what happens for her as well.
Well, that would be really cool. The second generation cheerleader at the Tide.
Yeah.
Well,
one of the stories I have here, and I think I wrote it to you. We used to throw out footballs when Northview would score touchdowns.
I was going to go there.
Yep. And, I guess we had a new superintendent in town, and I played softball, so we would throw these footballs out, and he was, I guess, sitting on the top row, and someone had asked me, hey, can you get a football up there to him? And so I was like, I'll try. And so here I go, and I played left field, so I had a little bit of an arm, but I got a football right up there to him on the top step. He couldn't believe it. It hit him right in the chest, my dad said. I mean, just right.
And guys, if you probably remember this, it had to have been close to 40 rows up to the top of Rip Hughes. That was no short toss. That was a gun right there. That's awesome. And
they were light footballs, so you had to get underneath it a little bit. But that's funny story. So how I met my husband a little bit too. We actually had practice in the indoor facility at Alabama because he played baseball, and rolled this baseball down, and it hit my foot. And he was probably a good, I don't know, he was all the way down at the other end. Well, I just took the baseball and threw it right back at him, and he couldn't believe it. But I had played left field my whole life in softball, so I could.
Was that his way of getting your attention, or was that an accident?
Yeah, I think so.
That's very funny. Well, now with your daughters going through cheer, and this may be an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How are you still their coach, or are you hands off, and now the professional coaches, not that you're not, but that you've hired or that part of their team really take over their responsibilities, and you're just mom?
Yeah, so that is a great question. So cheerleading has definitely evolved. It is 100% a sport. These athletes are just amazing in what they can do. So yes and no. So I was a rec league coach since when they grew up for many, many years. Coached both my girls and had the opportunity to teach the love of game day, or sideline cheering, as we would call it today. to a lot of different girls, and which is my love and my passion is game day and sideline cheering. So cheerleading has evolved into an all-star sport, which is called competitive cheerleading or competition cheerleading. And in competition cheerleading, it's more tumbling, stunting, not a whole lot of cheering. You're really cheering for a title. But, you know, just amazing to watch these athletes, what they do in the air. The tumbling is incredible. My girls spend about, I would say, 7 hours or more a week at the gym, you know, working on their skills, and at least 3 to 4 nights a week up at the gym. So lots of fun to watch. So yes, I let their professional coaches do the competitive cheerleading, and you know, I still help with sidelining game day with their high schools and local schools when they need me to.
The competitive cheerleading, would it be fair to say it's kind of a hybrid between gymnastics and cheerleading where they kind of meet? Because I've watched competitive cheer. I don't know what I'm looking at other than I recognize the athleticism. It's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. And so to put a girl in the air, it takes 3 girls. And so you have a main base and a side base and a back spot and a flyer. So your flyer is obviously the girl on top, but it takes those 3 girls. They work on grips and timing, and everything happens in, I mean, less than a second of how they're getting these girls in the air and switching grips and lifting and changing and catching and for safety. And, you know, it's truly amazing to watch. Everybody likes to watch the flyer, and one of my daughters is a flyer, but I also have a daughter who's a back spot. But I like to watch, when you get a chance, just the bases and what they're doing and the timing and how they're getting these kids in the air and keeping them in the air.
You still there?
I'm still there.
Well, let me pivot for just a second. When you watch college or high school football, but then your eye goes to the cheerleaders, do you recognize what they're doing? And this may not be fair because you've been so involved all over these years, but I'm asking you as to compare from your time in the 90s cheering to what the girls are doing now in the 20s. Is it the same? Do you recognize it? Just like the sport of football has evolved tremendously from back in our day to now. Same sport, but it's just so much more advanced, more evolved. Is that?
Yes, 100%. That's very fair. And actually the stunts that they're doing on the sidelines are what competitive cheerleaders are doing during a competition. So the stunts on the sidelines are just as intense or difficult, probably even more because there's a game going on. And the tumbling is just the same. So it definitely has evolved for sure. And it's, you know, I know at Alabama they have a co-ed team, and then they have an all-girl team. So that's really been neat to see. I think it's the crimson and white teams. But the stunts that they do are, you know, at that high level 6 competitive levels that they do on the sidelines.
It's just so advanced. It's amazing what they can do now. Before I get you out of here, I want to go back to Northview for just a second. And unfortunately, our school is no longer. And we're doing this oral history each week. We have conversations with former players, administrators, cheerleaders, whomever was involved with the program. And the question I want to ask of you, and this really is about your time there, but it could be for you just saying, I guess in general, what was it about the high school experience that gives you the greatest of memories, the greatest of joys? You mentioned being around your friends and cheering with them and watching them, etc. But representing our high school in such a public way that you did, what gives you the most joy? What memories and just, I guess, reflect on that for a minute.
You know, just being a kid, and you don't even really realize it, but just walking through the halls of Northview High School, you know, the teachers really cared about you, having relationships. You know, when you're in there, you're learning, but they're also, you know, rooting for you. And I went back and looked in my yearbook, and, you know, just the teachers and some of the things that they wrote were just so personable. And, you know, I really enjoyed that. Mr. Hardy, I was so glad I got to see him. I saw his interview the other night, you know, just a great man. but how they cared, about us, and just the Dothan itself was, just took us in, and, it was a little scary at first coming in, because I'd, never been a part of Dothan, didn't grow up in Dothan, and then just ended up absolutely falling in love with it. After my senior year, my dad got transferred to Birmingham, so it's a little bit closer to Tuscaloosa, but I always loved going back to Dothan and the people there. When I going to the beach every year, my kids know that it's coming, because I give them about, 15-minute spiel of how special Dothan was to me. And there was my high school, and, this is what I did here, and I did this here, and so-and-so lived down this road. They've heard it so many times. I actually got out and we kind of walked around maybe about 3 years ago, looked at the baseball and softball fields, and, just see how it had changed. But I would say just the community was just so much fun, and I enjoyed every second of it.
Now, have you taken the kids? Did you take them to the Peanut Festival or to the parade back in the day?
I have not, but that would be good. Actually, I should do that.
I don't think it matters what year you are, whether you're a grown adult with the adult children or you're a youngster. Going back to the Peanut Festival it just brings you back to such simple times, and
It does.
And Dothan.
And before this ends, I just want to make sure, I just want you to know how grateful. It's been so much fun. Thank you for doing this, and, to keep our school memories alive. And I love, hearing different people talk, and it just jogs a memory of like, oh yeah, I remember that. Just so much fun. And one of the things I do remember was our bonfire. It took 7 years and over like 700 signatures to get the bonfire our senior year against the Dothan Northview game. Wow. And Mullins tossed the tiger into the bonfire, and we were cheering on a flatbed truck, and that was our majorettes were twirling fire. I mean, that was a fun memory, as a senior. It took a lot of people to get that to happen, so all the adults that made that happen, that was definitely a fun memory for us.
It's interesting you bring that up. So that would have been in the fall of 91.
Mm-hmm.
So my senior year was the fall of 85, and we did have a bonfire. So I wonder if there was one in between. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Sounds to you. I wonder what happened my senior year to stop that. Maybe Miss Shirley C will know. But thank you for the kind words. Thank you for taking us down memory lane in your journey, Brandy. I really appreciate your time tonight. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I enjoy everybody that comes on. Northview is a special place in my heart. I know it is for a lot of other people. And I'm so proud and honored that I got to be a Northview Cougar, and that I get to relive all these memories through everybody.
Well, guys, once again, another fun conversation, as we do each Wednesday night on Conversations with Cougars. And we got a whole bunch more folks lined up in the upcoming weeks. So please keep coming back. Please keep inviting people who were part of our program, whether it was cheer, football player, coach, manager, trainer, band, whatever it was. Invite them to the group and encourage them to share their memories in there. So you guys have a good night, safe week, and we'll catch you next Wednesday. Take care.
All right.